Testimony. Federal District Court Judge Nancy Maldonado, nominated to the Court of Appeals for the 7th Circuit. Georgia Alexakis, nominated to the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Illinois. Krissa Lanham, nominated to the U.S. District Court for the District of Arizona. Judge Angela Martinez to the District of Arizona. And Sparkle Suknanan, nominated to the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. Congratulations to all the nominees and their families. I have the privilege of introducing two nominees from my home state, along with Ms. Suknanan. We also have Senator Sinema joining us to introduce Arizona nominees. But first, I'll return to the ranking member, Lindsey Graham, for opening remarks, if he would like to make some.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's going to be an eventful week trying to get our government funded. I just got back from Ukraine. They're fighting like tigers. I'm hoping we can find a way here soon to get something moving in the House that will allow us to get weapons to Ukraine in a way that's more sustainable, and I'm glad to be back.
Well, welcome home, and I share your sentiments about our relationship with Ukraine. We now have the introductions of our nominees, and first I'm going to recognize our colleague, Senator Sinema, to introduce Ms. Lanham and Judge Martinez.
Well, thank you, Chairman Durbin, Ranking Member Graham, and members of the committee. I am honored to be here today to introduce two outstanding Arizonans who have been nominated to serve as district court judges for the District of Arizona, Angela Martinez and Krissa Lanham. Federal Magistrate Judge Angela Martinez has been nominated to be a federal district judge for the Tucson Division of the U.S. District Court in Arizona. Angela was born in Tucson, as was I, the child of an elementary school teacher and a chief master sergeant in the U.S. Air Force. Judge Martinez is a double alumni and former adjunct professor at the University of Arizona, but as a proud ASU Sun Devil, I'm not going to hold that against her. Following undergrad, Angela managed crisis shelters for at-risk youth, and she brought her de-escalation and conflict resolution skills to her work as an attorney. She clerked for the Honorable John Roll and the Honorable Jennifer Zips, both judges on the U.S. District Court in Tucson, the court to which Angela has been nominated. She served as an assistant U.S. attorney and senior litigation counsel in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Tucson. She prosecuted complex, multi-defendant criminal investigations, represented the United States in federal criminal jury trials, and trained assistant U.S. attorneys. In her role as senior counsel, Angela also developed a district-wide formal mentorship program to further her passion of investing in young lawyers. She also has experience in private practice, having worked as an associate at two respected law firms in Arizona. Since March of 2023, she served as a magistrate judge for the District Court of Arizona, where she conducts civil and criminal pretrial hearings, resolves administrative disputes, oversees settlement conferences, sentences on misdemeanor offenses, and issues legal decisions. Her role as a magistrate judge builds on nearly 2 decades of experience in the federal court system. Judge Martinez was unanimously rated as well qualified for this role by the American Bar Association, their highest rating for judicial nominees. I'm confident that Judge Martinez will be a fair and effective district judge, and I look forward to supporting her nomination. I also have the privilege today of introducing Krissa Lanham, who's been nominated to the Phoenix Division of the U.S. District Court for the District of Arizona. Ms. Lanham was born and raised in Bangkok, Thailand, and is a double alumni of Yale University. I really have nothing to say about Yale. She clerked for Judge Robert Chotany of the U.S. District Court for the District of Connecticut and for Judge Barry Silverman on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 9th Circuit in Phoenix. Since 2009, Krissa has worked for the U.S. Attorney's Office in Arizona as an assistant U.S. attorney. She worked in the General Crimes and Southwest Border Crimes section, the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force and Narcotics section, and as a human trafficking coordinator. Since 2020, Krissa has served as appellate chief of the office. In this role, she serves a team of assistant U.S. attorneys, editing their appellate briefs and preparing them for oral argument, all while maintaining a district court caseload of her own. Krissa has extensive experience in both criminal and civil dockets. She's held high-level positions in the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Arizona through the past 3 administrations, demonstrating her ability to apply the law in a nonpartisan manner. Krissa was unanimously rated as well qualified for this role by the American Bar Association, their highest rating for judicial nominees. Krista has been committed to public service for 15 years in the U.S. Attorney's Office, and I look forward to her continued service for the United States as a judge on the District Court of Arizona. I am honored to support her nomination. Mr. Chair and members, these two outstanding nominees represent the best of Arizona's legal community. They are both deeply committed to justice, the rule of law, and furthering community engagement with the courts, and they both have received the ABA's highest rating. I'm pleased to introduce them to the Judiciary Committee today, and I look forward to supporting their nominations. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
Thank you, Senator Sinema, for joining us this morning. We know you have a busy schedule, and you'll be off to your next appointment, but your presence here today is important. Thank you very much. It's now my pleasure to introduce Judge Maldonado. Nominated to the Seventh Circuit, a native of the Chicagoland area, she received her A.B. cum laude from Harvard College or J.D. from Columbia Law School. After clerking for my friend, U.S. District Court Judge Ruben Castillo on the Northern District, Judge Maldonado has spent her entire career in private practice, specializing in employment, civil rights, and fraud litigation. In addition to that work in private practice, she served the people of Cook County and state of Illinois in a variety of capacities. In the early 2010s, she served as Special Assistant State's Attorney for Cook County to investigate fraud alleged by a whistleblower. In 2018, she was appointed to serve as a consent decree monitor in 2 employment discrimination cases, and in 2021, she served as a Special Assistant Attorney General in Illinois to investigate consumer fraud. In 2022, she was confirmed on a bipartisan basis to the Northern District of Illinois, becoming the first Hispanic woman to serve as an Article III judge in Illinois. Since joining the bench, Judge Maldonado has issued more than 250 written decisions. I look forward to learning more during today's hearing about her breadth of experience, and I welcome her family and friends. I'm also pleased to introduce Georgia Alexakis, nominated to the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Illinois. First-generation American, raised in Chicago, received her bachelor's degree from Harvard and her J.D. from Northwestern University School of Law. She clerked for Judge Marcia Berzon on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit and Judge Milton Shatter on the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Illinois. After beginning her legal career in private practice, she joined the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District, served as the office's Deputy Chief of Appeals, and as a Civil Rights and Hate Crimes Program Coordinator. Work with the FBI to review and identify violations for investigation and prosecution. After spending another year in private practice, Ms. Alexakis has returned to the U.S. Attorney's Office, currently serves as Chief of Appeals, and supervises the office's criminal practice in the Seventh Circuit. Over the course of her career, she's tried 10 cases to verdict and argued approximately 30 appeals in the Seventh Circuit. In 2021, she was awarded the Director's Award by the Executive Office of the U.S. Attorney for her successful appeal of a sentence of a defendant convicted of attempting to detonate a bomb in downtown Chicago. I look forward to hearing more about her breadth of experience in the courtroom. Ms. Alexakis, congratulations to you and your family. Today, we will also hear from Sparkle Suknanan, nominated to the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. Born in Trinidad and Tobago, immigrated to the United States at the age of 16 to attend college in New York, received her bachelor's degree from St. Francis College, an MBA from Hofstra, and a JD from Brooklyn Law School. She then clerked for Judge Eric Vitaliano on the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of New York and Judge Guido Calabrese on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. After that, Ms. Suknanan became a staff attorney in the Justice Department Civil Division. She then served as a law clerk to Justice Sonia Sotomayor on the U.S. Supreme Court. Following that clerkship, she joined Jones Day as an associate and later became a partner at the firm. For over 6 years, she represented clients in complex district court and appellate litigation. In 2021, she joined the Justice Department as Deputy Associate Attorney General in the Associate Attorney General's office. Last fall, she moved to the Civil Rights Division to serve as Principal Deputy Assistant Attorney General. The committee has received many letters of support of Ms. Suknanan's nomination, including from a bipartisan group of partners at Jones Day and from the Federal Law Enforcement Officers Association. I also have a statement of support for her from Representative Eleanor Holmes Norton, who could not attend today. I look forward to hearing more about her impressive experience and inspiring personal background. Now it's time to begin our first panel, and that will be Judge Maldonado. Please approach the witness table. raise your right hand. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give before this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Let the record indicate that the nominee answered in the affirmative. And now, Judge, you have 5 minutes to speak and then subject to questions from members on the panel. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Durbin and Ranking Member Graham, for convening this hearing today. This is the second time I appear before this committee, and it was with gratitude and awe for the opportunities that have been made available to me in our country. Thank you to you, Senator Durbin, and to Senator Duckworth for supporting my nomination, and to President Biden for the honor of this nomination. Since I was last before you, I've had the privilege to sit as a district judge in the Northern District of Illinois, my home district, where I have presided over nearly 1,000 cases, ruled on thousands of motions, and issued hundreds of orders. It has been the honor of a lifetime to be entrusted with administering justice in my home district. Today, I sit before you as a nominee to the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals to a seat currently held by the Honorable Alana Rovner, the first woman to sit on that court. It is a deep honor. I wish to thank my family and friends for their love and support, many of whom are here today. I thank my mother, Carmen, who is here today, and my late father, Avelino. They were my first role models of hard work, faith, and persistence. Thank you to them for giving me and my siblings, Sylvia and Albert, the foundation to succeed in life. I thank my children, my son, who is not able to be here today, but my daughter, who is, for their patience and support as I have transitioned to a new role as a judge. Thank you to Emanuele, my partner, for his support, and thank you to Martina, Elena, and Mung for being here. I include in my family many longtime friends who are here to support me, Noemi, Sol, and Jayesh, who are friends from college and law school. And finally, I wish to thank my court family, both my past court family and my present court family. And this includes retired Chief Judge Ruben Castillo, who I clerked for over 2 decades ago, and he first planted the seed of a judgeship in my mind, so I thank him for that. I also thank my current court family, my deputy, my court reporter, my law clerks, and I thank all my colleagues from the Northern District of Illinois. I truly believe we are one of the best districts in the nation. Thank you, committee members, for considering my nomination, and I welcome all your questions.
Judge, it's been 2 years or so since you last sat at this table for review by the committee, and you've had a life experience since then as a district court judge in the Northern District of Illinois. What surprised you about that experience?
I feel incredibly productive and useful. It's not a surprise, but the district court is a high-volume court, and it's my job to give parties what they need. And so it has been such a delight for me to work with my staff on what I call triaging. Jury trials have been one of my, not a surprise, but my favorite thing to do. The jury room is adjacent to my private studio, and I hear the jurors laughing, talking, and that's been one of the most inspiring things for me to witness, actually, is the jury trials.
When you consider all the cases and all the orders that you've authored and been involved in, I would imagine that in some cases it's a matter of almost first experience, some aspect of the law or some legal precedent. How often do you run into that?
All the time, Senator, all the time. Patent law, antitrust law, many issues are new. The criminal law was new to me, and I have gotten up to speed. So I'm still learning, and will probably be learning. That's the wonderful thing about the law. You could never know it all.
So anticipating your next possible assignment, how do you see your judicial life changing?
So I think that I have a good familiarity with the issues that come before the circuit. I will be stepping away, obviously, from presiding over jury trials and become a court of review, working with colleagues. Collegiality is very important to me. On the Northern District, we have a very collegial bench, and so I'll be collaborating with, should I be confirmed, with my fellow judges to consider the legal issues put before us.
Thank you. Senator Graham?
Thank you. Congratulations on your nomination, Judge. I think you have 125 motions pending before you. You were assigned October 3rd, 2022. Some of these motions have been briefed since 2021. You have the third highest number of pending motions of anybody nominated for the district court in this Congress. Some of them involve claims involving lack of adequate health care for people in prison, fire alarm ordinances in your state of Illinois. Why such backlog?
Thank you, Senator. So when I came onto the bench, I was assigned around 300 cases that had existing motions. I've worked really hard to get those motions, I think it was in the hundreds that I inherited, down to a reasonable number, and I'm still working at it. I am very careful with my decision-making, that all my decisions are well-reasoned. I want the parties to understand why they won or why they lost. We've also had a lot of turnover. This is not an excuse, but just an explanation. In my district, within my first 3 months on the bench, 3 judges left for various reasons, which meant more reassigned cases. So I also came on at the end of COVID, and so there were backlogs, and so I had cases set for trial that were older that really should have been tried during the COVID period, but were not for obvious reasons.
Well, it has nothing to do, you didn't want to rule on these things. When did you know you were going to be nominated for the circuit court?
So I learned this at some point late January, early February.
Okay. In the process of the nomination, of being nominated, have you talked to Mr. Christopher King, K-N-G, demand justice?
I have not spoken to him.
Have you ever spoken to him?
So I spoke to Mr. King probably in 2021.
Mm-hmm. What about a Robert Rabin from the Rabin Group?
I have not spoken with him in years as well.
So you didn't speak to anybody at the Rabin Group about your nomination?
To the Seventh Circuit?
Yes.
No.
You didn't speak to anybody demand justice about the nomination?
I did not speak to Mr. King. He did send me an email congratulating me, but that was the extent of the communication.
Did you talk to him or anyone about the National Hispanic Bar Association endorsement?
I believe I spoke to Mr. Rabin back in 2022 about that endorsement, but I actually did not speak to him this time around.
So I thought you said, when's the last time? I thought you said 2021's the last time you talked to Mr. Rabin. Was it?
No, I think it was 2022 because it was.
What was it about?
The endorsement from the Hispanic National Bar Association.
Why did you call him?
I'm sorry, when or why?
Yeah, why? He was the head of it, right?
I don't exactly recall how I was connected with Mr. Rabin, but I did want to seek the support of the Hispanic National Bar Association, and he coordinated I had to submit paperwork and do a Zoom interview with a panel from the HNBA. When
you were at the law firm after do you remember issuing a statement about the death of Mr. George Floyd and others who had been killed?
Senator Graham.
Breonna Taylor.
Our partnership approved a statement, yes.
Well, in it you accused President Trump and others of being divisive. What did you mean by that?
So, Senator, that was a statement that was put up on our website that was approved by the partnership.
But you wrote it?
I did not write it, Senator. It was written by one of my junior partners.
Was it under your name?
It was not under my name, per se. It was on the firm website approved by the partnership, of which I was part.
Who instigated the statement? Was it you or somebody else?
It was my junior partner.
Okay. So did the junior partner come to you and ask you to do the statement? How did that happen?
The junior partner, we would have regular partnership meetings during the pandemic.
Whose idea was it?
It was not my idea, Senator. It was my junior partner's idea.
Okay, you embraced it, all right? That statement, you stand behind that statement?
So, Senator, that statement I view as political speech, which
Well,
I'm precluded
the
from.
question is, do you stand behind that statement?
Senator, I think it would be inappropriate for me to opine on the content of that statement as a sitting judge.
Well, as part of your record, as part of the way you think. I'm running over here, but I mean, it was put up for the whole world to see, and it was pretty inflammatory. I agree with that. But I mean, was that your feelings then, and is that your feelings now?
Senator, again, I didn't write the statement.
Thank you.
Senator Booker?
Really don't have much questions for you. I'm really excited that you're here. I was honored to vote for you last time, and I'll be honored to vote for you again. I just want to pick up on what my friend and somebody I respect, Lindsey Graham, was picking up, and then be done. But you didn't write the letter, right?
That's correct, Senator. I did not write it.
Right, and so is it a stretch to hold you accountable for things that other folks wrote, even if they were part of the same organization or firm?
In my view, yes.
Okay. This is a pretty profound moment. As you said, it was you'd be taking the seat that's currently sat on by a history maker themselves, and that makes you, in many ways, and your diverse background would be the same thing on the bench. It's kind of humbling to see that, for me, to witness so yet another person that would bring such a different lived experience to the court. And I also know that you have done more sun salutations than any United States senator in your yoga practice. So I know that you're flexible and balanced. Is that right?
Thank you, Senator. I think that's true, yes.
Okay. And you said you have some family here. I just want to, one more time, if you could point them out for me.
Sure. So I have my partner, Manuela, my mother, Carmen, my daughter, and Elena, Martina, and Mang, and then family of Jayesh, Nomi, and Sol. They are my cheering squad.
Great. And are they also yoga masters or no?
Some of them do practice with me. Yeah.
But your husband does not. Let's be clear.
No, he does actually.
He does. Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Mr. Chairman, I'm very excited about this nominee, and thank you.
Thanks, Senator Booker. Senator Kennedy?
Judge, welcome.
Thank you.
You are probably the least productive member of your district court, isn't that right?
Well, I have not considered myself in those terms, Senator.
Well, let me explain what I mean. You have 125 motions pending that you've declined to decide.
Well,
Let me finish. That's more than any other district judge in the entire Seventh Circuit. In fact, you rank 7th highest nationally, do you not?
I am not familiar with those statistics, Senator Kennedy.
You haven't looked?
I did look in preparation for this hearing, but I didn't compare myself to others.
You haven't seen that you ranked the 7th, the worst in the country in terms of making decisions?
You are the first to tell me this. And I think for me, I stress the quality of my decision making. And as I explained, I came on, I was the first district judge to come on during this administration.
Yeah, but so were all the others. I mean, there have been 68 district judges confirmed in the 117th Congress. In terms of motions pending for more than 6 months, you rank number 3. You all came on at the same time. You all had the same problems with COVID. You're the 3rd worst. You really think of all the other district judges in the 7th Circuit, you're the one that ought to be promoted based on this record?
Senator, This is something that I've discussed with my fellow judges. Many of us new judges from.
Not you said you'd never looked at these statistics.
I haven't, these particular statistics I am not familiar with. But in terms of new judges, both from the current administration and the former administration, we are quite a collegial bunch. And oftentimes talk about the pressures of a new judge and the way reassignments work in our district, which is that you get, for example, 300 cases.
Yes, ma'am, I understand. I'm familiar with the procedure in federal court. Here's what I'm trying to understand. Why is your record so bad?
Well, I don't view it that way, Senator. When I look at the quality of my decision-making, the feedback that I get from parties,
Of course parties are not going to criticize you. They want you to rule in their favor.
I understand, Senator Kennedy.
I mean, that's just the way it works. Help me understand why you have such an abysmal record in moving cases. I mean, it costs a lot of money to litigate, and people are paying lawyers, and time is money. And of all the district court judges in the Seventh Circuit, you're the worst in terms of moving cases. Why do you think you deserve to be promoted over all of those others?
So, Senator, again, I'm not familiar with the statistics, but I stand by my record and that I give parties what they need. I think, I am regularly in my courtroom. I am regularly issuing decisions. I just came on at a very difficult time where there was a backlog in the courts.
So did everybody else. Let me ask you, when you were a partner in your law firm, you volunteered to write a brief on behalf of the Brady Center. You wrote the brief, and this is what you said. You volunteered for this. You weren't being paid. Is that right?
This was a pro bono case that one of my partners brought in, yes.
You said, quote, assault weapons may be banned because they're extraordinarily dangerous and are not appropriate for legitimate self-defense purposes, close quote. Tell me what you meant by assault weapons.
Thank you, Senator Kennedy. Just to clarify there, I was local counsel. Our Supreme...
but you wrote the brief. Tell me what you meant by assault weapons.
Senator Kennedy, actually, I did not write the brief. The brief was written by...
You signed the brief, though, didn't you?
Correct. I signed the brief.
When you sign a brief, you're testifying to the court that everything in it is true, right?
Yes.
Okay. So they're your words in terms of the court, right?
Well, you're correct, Senator Kennedy. Okay. I would never sign...
Tell me what you meant by assault weapons.
So I am not a gun expert, and at the time, that brief, I think, was about 10 years...
But you were giving the court advice about, say, ban assault weapons. What is... You told the court you were an expert. Just tell me what you wanted to ban.
Senator, sitting here today, as I said, I did not write that brief. I was local counsel.
Sign the brief.
I understand. At the time...
Tell me what you wanted to ban. That's all I want to know, Judge.
I don't remember the exact definition of assault weapons in the ordinance that was at issue.
So you submitted a brief to an appellate brief. You signed it, and you don't know what. And you said abolish assault weapons, and you don't know what you wanted them to abolish.
Senator, at the time that I signed the brief, I read the brief because our Supreme Court required an Illinois bar member to sign the brief. I was not responsible for researching the content.
You were responsible for the brief.
Absolutely, absolutely. And sitting here today, I do not remember the characteristics of that were cited in the ordinance for the assault weapons ban. It's not an area of practice that I have specialized in. I'm sure 10 years ago I could have answered your question.
And
but
Judge,
sitting here today,
you think
Senator,
you deserve to be promoted with this record?
Senator, I stand by my record. I stand by my record.
Senator Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations to you and your family. I know that none of us get to these opportunities by ourselves, and so I just appreciate all of you for being of support, and congratulations to you for being nominated. It is definitely no small feat. To follow on a little bit on my colleagues' questioning, if you were to be confirmed for this position, would you follow precedent on gun cases and other cases that might come before you?
Absolutely, Senator Butler. I would follow Brune, Heller, McDonald on the Second Amendment cases. The first thing I do on any case is look at precedent. That's what guides me in my decision making.
And to the point about your caseload, you noted earlier that you had come on and were assigned well over 300 cases. Can you talk to us a little bit about the process through which you worked to bring those numbers down?
Thank you, Senator. So the number was close to 300, and then within 3 months of me getting on, 3 additional judges retired or left the bench, which quickly brought my number to 360. And so, I had a whole system of triage with spreadsheets, trying to figure out where each case was, which cases needed to be set for trial, which cases had pending motions for summary judgment, which cases had pending motions to dismiss. I tried to lap off a large chunk of motions to dismiss to decide whether the case was going to go forward or not. I set cases for trial. Some cases settled. So it was an intensive triage effort that I engaged in, and I love Excel. It's a wonderful tool, and I think we were very productive. And so at the same time also that I got the reassigned cases, you go on the wheel, so you're also receiving new cases, and you want to get those cases going in an expedient fashion, right? So you're dealing with the backlog and also dealing with new cases coming in.
So you had the 360 after your colleagues retired or left, and you were the recipient of or being assigned new cases as well. So the number was continuing to expand even as you were working through all of the different phases of each case and working them to conclusion.
That's correct, and I think the number is close to 1,000 cases that have been assigned to me.
Important context. Thank you. And just so that we have an understanding just about how you handle transition, right? Being assigned that number of cases, taking on that number of new cases, working through all of the motions. You also have experienced other opportunities of transition in your legal career. Can you talk with us about the process that of learning and getting up to speed and ensuring timely justice for those who would be coming before you, the transition that you made from being a law partner to a district court judge?
Thank you, Senator Butler. So I'm a big believer in asking for help. And I am very blessed in the Northern District of Illinois that I have many colleagues who shared best practices, and I came up with my own as well. Worked with my law clerks. I have a very experienced courtroom deputy who's been invaluable to me. And so, I've done my best to sort of get into the job. And the job of a district judge is very multifaceted in that we're hearing motion calls, typically for me, 3 mornings a week, in addition to issuing orders and opinions, in addition to the criminal work, sentencings, for example, that I devote a lot of time to preparation for. So, on every daily basis, every week, I have to do sort of my plan for the week. And of course, planning only goes so far because there are emergencies in the district court, TROs, et cetera. So I do my best to allocate my time wisely.
Thank you so much. Mr. Chair, it's a fantastic nominee that the President is putting before us, not only qualified, but organized, an attention to detail, and a commitment to timely justice for those who appear before. I'd be excited to support her.
Thank you, Senator Butler. Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Judge, welcome.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. I want to talk to you about your relationship with demand justice. And during your last confirmation process before this committee, you said in response to a question for the record that you've spoken with Demand Justice's co-founder, Chris King, and I'm quoting you, a couple of times about the judicial nominations process, end quote. Do I have that right?
Yes.
Okay. I've looked at the positions that Demand Justice has taken, and one of their priorities has been to expand the Supreme Court. So did you speak with Mr. King about expanding the Supreme Court?
No, Senator Blackburn. My conversations with Mr. King were limited to getting advice and guidance on how the nomination process worked. It was quite opaque to me at that point, and so he provided guidance.
Do you support increasing the number of justices on the Supreme Court?
That is a matter that I am precluded from opining on under the canons. But I think if you look at my record, I've never taken that position.
I don't think you're precluded on giving an opinion as to whether or not you think that the Supreme Court should be expanded. And Demand Justice has suggested that adding 4 justices would bring, and I quote them, restore balance and integrity. So do you think that there's a particular number of justices that should be added to the Supreme Court?
Senator Blackburn, I have never taken any position on this. I don't think it's appropriate for me to opine on it.
Okay, Demand Justice claims that the Supreme Court is, and I'm quoting them, unethical, unaccountable, and out of control. Do you share that assessment?
Senator, I don't have a relationship with Demand Justice. I've only spoken to Mr. King on a couple occasions several years ago. I'm not familiar with their positions, but I don't associate myself with those.
Obviously, you respected him, or you wouldn't have called him and gotten advice from him. So that is what concerns me, that you would go to a far left-leaning group to get advice on how to come before the Senate Judiciary Committee. Senator Kennedy talked with you about your ranking, and you are, as he told you, number 1 at having the biggest backlog in the 7th Circuit, and you're number 7 nationwide with outstanding motions. And the thing, as I looked at this, Judge, what is very curious to me is how you're so out of step with the other district judges as far as managing your time and moving cases forward and actually making decisions. I looked at the alarm detection systems case, and you've had a fully briefed motion since September of 22. And then the Palladino Wells Fargo case, you've had since November of 22. So I understand how time-consuming the work is. I understand, and let me tell you, we do a lot of reading. We do a lot of prep work for our hearings. But I find it interesting that when you have a fully briefed case in front of you, you cannot come to a decision. So what hinders you from being able to arrive at decisions when you have everything you need to make the decision?
Thank you, Senator. I wouldn't say that I'm hindered in my decision-making. In fact, if you look at my record, I am a fan of ruling on the record. And so I've done decided many motions on the record at hearings over the course of several hours. So I'm not hindered.
District Judge, let's talk about that, because I went in and looked at your record, and I noted the fact that you've only presided over 1 civil trial to verdict in your nearly 2 years on the bench. 1 trial, just 1. And that, combined with the fact that you had tried only 3 cases when you were in private practice, leads me to question your fitness for the court. So how can you expect us to confirm you to the circuit court when in 2 years You've presided over one civil trial, and your backlog is larger than nearly everyone else. What would qualify you?
Senator, I would look at the quality of my decision-making.
Other judges find a way to do expediency and quality of work. Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. I believe Senator Lee is next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Judge Maldonado, for being here. When we look at the work of a federal district judge, it's a busy docket. One has a lot of motions to follow and to stay on top of. Some of the motions that end up taking a lot of time are on the civil docket side of things, motions for summary judgment. In your view, is it what's worse, to when you've got a close case, to grant a non-meritorious dispositive motion or a Rule 56 summary judgment motion, or to fail to grant a motion for summary judgment where it is warranted? In a close case, which one is worse, or is either worse?
Thank you, Senator Lee. So I am very careful with motions for summary judgment because I respect the role of the jury. And I think it is rather arrogant for me to decide there's no disputed issue of material fact. And so I inherited, I don't know, tens and tens of motions for summary judgment, and I take those very seriously because I don't want to take someone's day in court away from them and usurp the role of the jury. So those are the most time-consuming motions that I have before me. And just to clarify, when I received my reassignment, many motions that I received were from 2020, 2021, and so I had to triage and have a pipeline and decide the oldest first, and that was sort of my plan of attack, to decide those older motions first.
Okay, that's helpful to know. So it sounds like you may have gotten assigned some dogs when you arrived. It happens sometimes with the newly arrived judge. It's sort of a hazing ritual among some judges. The reason I ask about the dispositive motion issue is that there's a natural tendency among judges, including federal district judges, to want to not face the more difficult decision whenever they can avoid it. It is more difficult to grant a motion for summary judgment than it is to deny one. And you're subject to appeal much more quickly, more likely to get reversed, and if you deny it, the parties might well settle and call that trial by attrition. It's a list of paradoxes that exist in the court, in the judicial system. On the one hand, justice delayed is justice denied. On the other hand, as evidenced by the turtles on display in the courtyards at the Supreme Court across the street, sometimes the deliberative process needs to be deliberate and it needs to be slow-paced. And so those tensions have to be managed. But the risk we run into is the judge looking for ways, perhaps, to minimize the judge's exposure to being overturned on appeal and the workload. Granting the motion for summary judgment requires you to write an opinion or order, which takes time and can be immediately appealed. Now, of these cases that you've got, I think it's 125 pending motions that you've got, ranking you as number one in the Seventh Circuit, number 7 in the nation. There are some that are troubling, some that, including one that was filed by a prisoner. This is not complex multi-district litigation involving huge mega corporations. There's one, for example, that's been fully briefed since November 2021, for 3.5 years nearly. We call this a fully ripe motion for summary judgment. The prisoner in this case filed the case complaining that he's, while in prison, suffering extreme tooth pain. It's apparently going unaddressed while he's in prison. They've done everything they can to get it teed up. It's fully briefed, it's before you, and just last month the plaintiff submitted another status report request of the court, and your response was, quote, "The court has taken defendant's motions under advisement and will endeavor to rule on both in the near future." What does that mean here, endeavor to rule? And what more would you need to rule on a case of that relative simplicity in less than 3.5 years?
Thank you, Senator. So do you happen to know the name of that case?
We can get that for you.
Okay. So there is a triage process that I follow in my chambers. We're generally working on the oldest motions, and I think reading what you just wrote, listening to what you just read to me, I think this means it's in the immediate pipeline, meaning that it's in the top, 10 things that are immediately going to be issued. Now, I am a very involved judge. I edit every single thing that goes out of my chambers, and so oftentimes and I go back and forth with my law clerks on drafts. It's not sometimes the most rapid process,
But does this case ring a bell? Do you recognize?
If I knew the name, it's probably with all my law clerks. We have our list of things that we're working on, our pipeline, which has to be based somewhat on chronology. So you mentioned November 2021. I wasn't even on the bench yet. And so that came to me almost a year old.
Right.
And that wasn't even one of the oldest.
It was fully ripe before you became a judge. And
a year before I became a judge.
And I understand that. Sometimes new judges, part of this hazing ritual that I described, get assigned dogs, get assigned a long list of cases with pending dispositive motions. I understand that happens. But we will get that information to you. I raise it simply because it is very important that we not drag those out. At some point, it becomes trial by attrition, and the parties lose a lot when justice is delayed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Lee. This is a worthy line of questioning as to whether you're a good judge. And one of the indicators they're using is the number of matters still pending before you over a long period of time. As you've explained, being a new judge, you inherit hundreds of motions and cases to consider, and they keep coming at you. It isn't like it stops one day and you can catch up over the next 6 months, as I understand it. I think the only objective criterion we can point to, which doesn't answer all the questions, is your performance in those cases where you've made decisions. And I think that that's noteworthy and should be part of the record. You were asked a question as part of the preparation for this hearing to provide a brief summary of citations of all your opinions where your decisions were reversed by a reviewing court or where your judgment was affirmed with significant criticism. If any of the opinions listed were not officially reported, provide copies. So we were pretty specific about this. We want to find out what the reviewing court thinks of your job performance. And here's your answer. To the best of my knowledge, based on review of my records and legal databases, my decisions have never been reversed by a reviewing court, nor have my judgments been affirmed with significant criticism of my substantive or procedural rulings. You have described yourself as, in my words, thoughtful and careful and taking cases based on I guess, the nature of the case and the seriousness of the matter to be decided. I like to hear that. As a practicing trial attorney many decades ago, I was always anxious for a decision from the court. It always seemed like it took way too long because you think, this is pretty obvious. Why isn't she ruling in my favor? That is not always the case, obviously. But the fact that you have never been reversed in the 2 years that you've been practicing is an indication that you are careful and thoughtful and obviously up to the job. So I want to make that a part of the record. Thank you, Judge, for joining us today, and we'll excuse you at this point. You may get written questions from members of the panel sent your way. If you could respond in a timely fashion, it will help us all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all.
We now have a group of nominees for district court, and I'll ask them to approach the table as we change over the water bottles and nameplates. If you please remain standing and raise your right hand. I'll also swear in Senator Booker as part of this. You affirm the testimony you're about to give before this subcommittee with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. The record reflects the nominees answered in the affirmative. And we will start with Ms. Alexakis. You have 5 minutes for presentation, and then when all have completed, the senators may ask questions. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Durbin. I'm humbled to be here this morning. I appreciate your kind introduction and your support of my nomination to the federal bench. I want to extend the same gratitude to Senator Duckworth as well. I also want to thank you, Chair Durbin, and Ranking Member Graham for convening today's hearing. Thank you as well to all the members of the committee and their staff for doing the important work of preparing for today. I want to thank President Biden for this nomination. I'm grateful for the opportunity he has given me to continue to serve the people of the Northern District of Illinois, and to do so in the same federal courthouse in Chicago where my parents were sworn in as citizens decades ago. I'd like to say a few words about my parents, because my story begins with their decision to leave a small village in Greece and seek out opportunities in this great country. My parents instilled in me and my two sisters the value of hard work and the importance of an education. Some of my earliest memories as a child are riding the bus with my mom to her evening ESL classes and watching my dad, recently home after having finished working the night shift as a delivery truck driver, gulping down a cup of coffee before taking me to school. I will never be able to repay my parents for the enormous sacrifices they made so that I can sit here today. My commitment to public service, though, is my way of working to repay my family's debts to this country. I want to thank a group of close friends who have traveled to be here with me today. These individuals represent a tiny fraction of all the people in my life who I am lucky to have as champions, teachers, and mentors. Within that larger universe, I count professors who cultivated my enthusiasm for the law. Judge Marcia Berzon and Judge Milton Shader, for whom I was so fortunate to clerk early in my career. Law firm colleagues who showed me how to zealously advocate for a client while remaining firmly within the bounds of the law. And the brave law enforcement partners and tireless assistant United States attorneys with whom I have proudly served for nearly a decade. To my husband, Oliver, who stayed behind in Chicago with our three-ring circus, otherwise known as my three beautiful children. You are our family's visionary, capable of seeing what the five of us can accomplish together with equal parts hard work, grit, and humor. Thank you for your love and support. And to that three-ring circus, again, my three beautiful children, I want you to know this. You keep me humble, you keep me curious, you make me want to make the world a better place, and I love you more than you will ever know. Thank you, Chair Durbin, for this opportunity to express my appreciation. I welcome the committee's questions.
Thank you very much. Ms. Lanham?
I'd first like to thank Chair Durbin, Ranking Member Graham, and the members of the committee for considering my nomination, and Senators Sinema and Kelly for their support. Thank you also to Senator Sinema for her kind introduction this morning. And thank you to President Biden. I am truly humbled by this nomination. I would not be here today without the support of so many, both in my legal career and beforehand. Starting with those who couldn't be here today, I'd like to recognize my two judges, Judge Shotney and Judge Silverman, who taught me the values of thoughtfulness, patience, humility, and good humor in trying to get every single ruling right. I'd also like to thank Judge Silverman especially for his unwavering support and mentorship over my years in Phoenix, and his wife Georgie and our neighbor Kate for being my original Phoenix family. Thank you to the judges of the District of Arizona who treated me with respect and kindness from the moment I set forth in their courtrooms as a new lawyer 15 years ago, and whose high expectations made me the best advocate that I could be. I am honored at even the thought of joining you at the courthouse. I want to thank my current and former colleagues at the U.S. Attorney's Office and Department of Justice more generally, many of whom are cherished friends, and my cheering squad of fellow moms and dads who are watching from Phoenix. You all lift me up, and I'm so grateful. I was privileged to have the experience of growing up in Bangkok, Thailand, and I want to thank my friends and family who woke up very early from around the world today to watch, including in Thailand, New Zealand, Abu Dhabi, Tenerife, Jamaica, and Australia. You have all enriched my life beyond measure. And now, closer to home, the people who are here with me today and my mother-in-law, Sheila, who stayed behind in Phoenix to make it possible for them to come. My parents, Rose and Bob, are here. They came from a small town in Ohio and an equally small town in Australia. They were both in the first generation in their families to attend college. But through a dedication to education and sheer hard work, they literally gave their children the world. Thank you. My little brother, Jimmy, is also here today. He has provided steady support over the years, despite having to withstand my judgment in the years before I learned that judges should be fair. Thank you, too, to my sister-in-law and nieces for making it possible for him to come today. Also here are my two boys who have taught me more about conflict resolution and patience than any professional opportunity could, but who have also brought me the very most joy. I'm so proud to be your mom, and I hope I make you proud today. And finally, my husband, Brian, who's my partner in keeping it all together, my biggest cheerleader, and my best friend. Thank you. Senators, I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. Judge Martinez?
Thank you, Chair Durbin, and also thank you to Ranking Member Graham. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I'd also like to thank my home state senators, Senator Sinema and Senator Kelly, for their support, as well as President Biden for the tremendous honor of this nomination. By way of background, I was raised a military kid. My dad, Jose Martinez, who's here today, served 30 years in the United States Air Force. My mom, Carol Martinez, who passed away a few years ago, was a committed military spouse, a public school teacher, and a wonderful mom to us 4 kids. My brothers and sister, including my sister Kim, who's here today, are forever thankful to them both. I am confident that I would not be sitting here today without their love and support and countless sacrifices. I share my upbringing because it has fundamentally formed my deep respect and my deep love for our country and our democracy. My life has been blessed with tremendous mentors and friends. To law professor Rhonda Rivera and my 8th grade American history teacher, Miss Mueller, you made the Constitution come alive for me. To my judicial role models, the late Chief Judge John M. Rohl and Jennifer Zips, thank you for the opportunities to serve the District of Arizona and for demonstrating every single day all that a judge should be. To my chamber's staff, Sandra and Kat and Susanna, thank you for your support and for making our chambers a wonderful place to work. To my judicial colleagues, particularly my fellow magistrate judges, I'm honored to serve alongside you. To Judge Jimmy Soto, whose position I may fill if I am fortunate to be confirmed, I am forever humbled by your encouragement that I apply to fill your position. To my former colleagues at the United States Attorney's Office, as well as the many defense attorneys with whom I have worked, thank you for your dedicated commitment to service to our district. And to my dearest friends, some of whom are here today, I am so blessed to have such smart, deep-thinking, funny, and kind friends. And finally, to my family, including all my nieces and nephews, and there's a lot of them, some are here today. You are my greatest blessings. To my husband Chuck and my daughter who are here today, thank you for the countless moments of quiet support, and particularly to my daughter. I hope that you see me sitting here today encourages you to know that you can also do and be whatever you set out to be. And I also have a 6-year-old son who I did not bring here today. He's back in Arizona, but he gave me some very sage advice, and he told me, Mom, you should try to say something really smart. And to him, I promise I'll do my absolute very best. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Judge. Ms. Suknanen, tell me if I'm pronouncing your name correctly or close to correct.
Thank you, Senator Suknanen, yes. Thank you, Chair Durbin, Ranking Member Graham, and to this committee and your staff for considering my nomination and holding this hearing today. I am grateful to the President for the tremendous honor of this nomination and to Congresswoman Norton and her nominating commission. Senators, as I sit before you today, I can say with certainty that the American dream is real. I was born and raised in Trinidad and Tobago, a small island in the Caribbean, and I moved to New York on my own as a teenager to attend college. Never in my wildest dreams could I have imagined this day in my future. I didn't get here on my own, but through the support and love of many people, and I would like to thank them. 3 judges shaped who I am as a lawyer and a person. I had the great fortune of beginning my career as a law clerk to Judge Eric Vitaliano on the United States District Court for the Eastern District of New York. The Eastern District of New York is the courthouse where I was naturalized as a United States citizen. And so walking into that very building every day as a law clerk was just one of the most special years of my life. I then clerked for Judge Guido Calabresi on the Second Circuit and for Justice Sonia Sotomayor on the United States Supreme Court. I can think of no better judicial role models, and I strive to make each of them proud every day. Many teachers had a hand in my education, so I must say to my teachers in Trinidad and those at St. Francis College, Hofstra University, and Brooklyn Law School, thank you. I spent my formative years as a young lawyer at Jones Day and later had the privilege of joining the partnership. To my former colleagues, I learned so much from you about the practice of law, and I am grateful for the many years of support and friendship. To my colleagues at the Justice Department, including those in Civil Appellate, my first home at the department, in the Associate Attorney General's office, and in the Civil Rights Division, it has been an honor serving alongside you. Finally, I thank my family and dear friends, those here today, and many more watching across the country and in Trinidad. Throughout my life, you have supported me, you have laughed with me, celebrated the good times, and wiped my tears in the hard times. I love you all deeply. Finally, to my husband here today, Ryan, the absolute love of my life, my rock, and my home, I wouldn't be sitting here without you. And to my 6-year-old son and 4-year-old daughter, who one has left the room, you are and will always be my greatest accomplishment. Being your mommy is my most important job and the thing that brings me the most joy every day. Senators, thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. The nominees know this, and make sure the people in attendance know it as well. All of the nominees at this table and Judge Maldonado before them were found well qualified by the American Bar Association. They go through close scrutiny before they arrive in this room and at this table. And I think it speaks well of you that those who have watched you in action as an attorney or as a judge have judged that you're well qualified for this promotion. That's a good starting point. So Ms. Alexakis, tell us a little bit about your experience with the Civil Rights and Hate Crimes Coordination.
Thank you for that question, Senator. I served as the Civil Rights and Hate Crimes Program Coordinator at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Chicago for approximately 2 years, from 2019 through 2021. And I worked closely with law enforcement to both investigate civil rights potential civil rights abuses by law enforcement officials, but also to do community outreach with respect to hate crimes, and to do extensive community outreach both primarily at the time to interfaith religious groups, to communicate to them the Department of Justice's commitment to ensuring the execution of hate crime laws that Congress has passed. And so I found myself in gyms, auditoriums, meeting rooms all around the Northern District of Illinois, speaking to various groups of faith primarily, Jewish groups, Christian groups, a Muslim and a Zoroastrian group located in the western suburbs of Chicago, to help them understand that the Department of Justice is committed to prosecuting hate crimes and to helping to broker connections between those community groups and law enforcement so that they knew where those resources could be found.
Thank you. Ms. Lanham, this global following of yours, would you like to explain it?
Senator, yes. I had the tremendous privilege of growing up in Bangkok, Thailand, because my father's work took us there. I was able to attend an international school with students of more than 53 nationalities, and that experience has made me who I am today. There are many lessons that I learned as a part of that, including listening to find out where someone is coming from before I even start to form conclusions about who they are. Connecting with people on a human level, because we all have more inside that is common about us than different, but also the tremendous strength that diversity brings. And so with those lessons, I hope to employ them both in my courtroom and my chambers if I am so fortunate to be confirmed.
Judge Martinez, I guess as practicing attorneys, many of us reach our own judgment about the temperament and skills of the sitting judges we appear before. You've been on both sides of the bench now. What's your observation on the temperament of judges?
Thank you, Chair Durbin. My observation is that the temperament of the judge sets the tone for the courtroom, and it's fundamentally important that when a judge is in the courtroom, that they are respectful, that they carry themselves in a dignified manner, that they give the parties an opportunity to be heard, because parties may not always leave agreeing with the court's ruling, but it's imperative that they feel that they had a fair opportunity to air their grievances and to be heard. And for those reasons, it's just fundamental that judges give the parties that chance.
Thank you. Ms. Sukanen, I was struck by the notes given to me for this hearing that you came to the United States at the age of 16.
That's right, Senator.
That's a pretty bold adventure for a 16-year-old. Did you have family here that you visited with or lived with?
Senator, I applied to college and was fortunate to receive a scholarship from St. Francis College in Brooklyn Heights, and so I set out on a journey that I did not think would end here.
And when did your naturalization take place?
I was naturalized as a citizen in 2009, Senator.
I see. So you will have responsibility for naturalization ceremonies when you ascend to the bench, and I hope you do. What do you want to leave as your message to these young people coming to the United States?
Senator, I still vividly remember my naturalization ceremony, which Judge Irizarry presided over in the Eastern District of New York. And as I said in my introduction, I was really blessed to be able to clerk in that very courthouse. The message I would give to people is that anything is possible in this country. I mean, I'm so fortunate to have had the opportunities I have had, starting off in college and leading to this day. And I think this country, the opportunities that it provides, it's really amazing. I think only in America can someone walk the path I have walked and be sitting here today before the Senate Judiciary Committee as a nominee to the federal bench. I think my life is an example of that. And if I am fortunate to be confirmed, presiding over naturalization ceremonies would be at the top of the list of things that I would be really honored to do.
Well, I often recall when I have the privilege of being asked to speak at these ceremonies, I always mention the fact that my mother was a naturalized citizen and her son turned out to be a full-time government employee. So I warned them that the child on their lap may end up being senator one day if they're not careful. Thank you very much, Judge Kennedy, Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations to all of you. Judge Martinez, tell me about state police power.
Senator, my understanding of state police power is the authority of the state officials to enforce state law.
Well, what if the state law is in violation of federal law?
Well, we have the Supremacy Clause under Article 6 of the Constitution that provides that federal law is the supreme law of the land.
Yeah, but that's not an exercise of state power. What's the origin of state's police power?
My understanding, Senator, is also from Article 1 of the Constitution, where the Congress was enumerated certain powers, and under one of the provisions of Article 1, anything that was not specifically enumerated.
You don't think it's Article 10?
Well, Article 10 has to also, is also applicable.
Actually, the 10th Amendment, what does the 10th Amendment say?
The 10th Amendment provides that any specific power that was not given to a Congress or denied to the states applies to the states and the people.
And that's the origin of a state's police power, right?
Yes, Senator.
Okay, it's not Article 1.
I read it as both, Senator, but if it's Amendment 10, then it's Amendment 10, Senator.
Does the federal government have police power?
The federal government has authority to enforce its federal law.
Yes, ma'am. But we've talked about the state's police power. Does the federal government have police power?
Well, the executive branch has the power to enforce the law executed by the legislature.
Well, but the federal government can't. The Constitution's pretty clear that you have to have an enumerated power in the Constitution, right, in order to be able to do something?
Well, it's my understanding, Senator, there are enumerated powers, but there are also implied powers in the Constitution.
Yeah, but those are implied to be enumerated. There is no federal police power, is there?
Well, Senator, my understanding is that the executive branch has the power to execute the laws of the United States.
I know, but that has nothing to do with police power. Let me move on. Counselor, tell me how to say your last name.
Suknanan, Senator.
Say it again, please, ma'am.
Suknanan.
Suknan?
Suknanan.
Suknanan, okay. Counselor, you used to practice law at Jones Day, is that right?
That's correct, Senator.
Okay. And there was an article in the New York Times. I don't know whether you leaked it to them or somebody from your law firm leaked it to them. Your firm, Jones Day, you were a partner then, and you were representing a party, your firm was, and you were, in a post-election challenge to Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court, of course, extended the filing deadline for absentee ballots in the president's election, and that was challenged as being unconstitutional under both the state and the federal constitution. Am I right?
Yes, Senator.
And Jones Day was handling that case, right?
That's correct.
And you were a partner at Jones Day, is that right?
That's correct, Senator.
Okay. And who was your client in that case?
The firm's client was the Pennsylvania GOP, Senator.
Well, it's your client too, right?
Correct, Senator. I was not the lawyer in that case, but yes, Senator.
But you were going to share in the profits made from the bills paid by the Pennsylvania GOP, right?
Senator, it was a firm client. I was a partner at the firm.
And you were going to share in the money, right?
Correct, Senator.
Okay. And in a call where you and some of your partners were talking about the case, This is what you said about your client who's paying you. You said, this is according to an August 25, 2022 article. You said, quote, "This lawsuit was brought for no other reason than to deprive poor people of the right to vote," close quote. You said that, didn't you?
Senator, those were not my words. I do not know who provided that quote to the reporter.
You gave it to the reporter, didn't you?
Senator, I never spoke to the reporter or anyone in the media about the meeting in question, and I'll tell you why. As a partner at Jones Day, all partners are bound by a confidentiality obligation to the firm. And that meeting was an internal, confidential partners meeting.
Yeah,
I never spoke to the media about it, and those were not my words, Senator.
This is a violation of about 927 provisions of the Code of Ethics, isn't it?
Senator, that's why I never spoke to that reporter, and those were not my words. I do not know who provided that quote to the reporter.
What did you mean? Who was trying to deprive poor people of the right to vote? Who were you referring to when you said that?
Senator, as I said, those were not my words.
Oh, you never said that. You denied.
Senator, those were not my words.
If we deposed your partners on that call, they would say, no, she never said it.
Senator, I am telling you here today under oath that those were not my words. I never spoke to them.
If we deposed your partners and put them under oath, they would say, no, she never said that?
Senator, I can't tell you what someone else would say under oath. I can tell you under oath that those were not my words. I never spoke to the media about that call.
And you think, in light of this, you're qualified to be a federal judge?
Senator, I never spoke to the media.
You say that about a client?
Senator, as I said, those were not my words, and I never spoke to the media about the meeting in question. I take my obligations, ethical and otherwise, incredibly seriously.
You said that, didn't you?
Senator, I did not say those words.
So the New York Times got it wrong?
Senator Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here. Congratulations to all of you, and thank you to your families for supporting you in your journey. I must say, Mr. Chairman, you can't see, but Miss Lanham's youngest son has on the best cowboy boots. And I'm sure they were a contribution of his father's love, but they are the absolute best, young man. And just to also note and appreciate the quality of leaders that are before us today. It is, we are in the midst of Women's History Month, and we are celebrating so many of the contributions that the women of yesterday have contributed to the trajectory of our nation. And I just think that this is a panel that speaks to our country's tomorrow. So thank you all for being a representation of the future for not only America's daughters, but America's sons and those who will wear such fabulous cowboy boots. I just wanted to, Ms. Suknanan, if we can just follow up really quickly here on, I think as a line of questioning from my colleague. Yeah, there's a letter from your colleagues at Jones Day that's been submitted in support of your nomination and confirmation here as a part of this process. In it, there are many comments of congratulations, many examples of your incredible work and contribution to the firm, and a number of specific examples where you have led from a, quote, gifted and fair-minded legal thinker. So, Mr. Chair, if it would be okay, I'd like to have this letter submitted to the record supporting. Thank you. Also a signatory of this letter, Mr. Noel Francisco, former U.S. Solicitor General appointed by President Trump, is a signatory, one of many signatories to this letter in support of your nomination. Can you, just for a bit, talk a little bit about your experience and what it feels like for you in this moment to be nominated here, and just the amount of, I always ask a question about pro bono work. if there is a case that is top of mind for you that demonstrates, I think, what value you would bring to the court in your pro bono work.
Senator, thank you. I'm not sure it's possible to really put into words what this moment means for me and for my family. It is profoundly humbling to be here and to be nominated for this position. I am very grateful for the 6 years that I spent at Jones Day. I am very grateful for all that I learned from all of my partners. I built great relationships and friendships that I still have today. And I am very grateful for their support today, as they have been throughout my career. I would say Jones Day is a really wonderful firm for many reasons, and one of them is the firm does take on pro bono representations and really sees a role for law firms in giving back and representing clients who are indigent and who need representations. I was fortunate to work on a number of matters at the firm representing indigent criminal defendants that were very meaningful to me to give back and to really make sure that clients moving through the criminal justice system have adequate representation.
Thank you so much. And you have done one of the things that I think is incredibly difficult in that you've completed the trifecta of law clerking for the district court, for the circuit court, and the Supreme Court. You know, what is a best practice that you have gathered from those experiences that you would carry forward if you were confirmed to serve in this role?
Senator, it was really an honor clerking on every level of the federal judiciary, and I will say very quickly, there are three things that I took away from those clerkships collectively and from my judges. One, the importance of fidelity to the law in judicial decision-making. Two, really being diligent and doing the work to thoroughly understand each case before you. And finally, being respectful to every litigant who appears before you. I will share one last thing, which is my district court judge at the beginning of each clerkship year, Judge Vitaliano, often tells his law clerks to remember that behind the case captions are real people. And that's something that has really stayed with me throughout my career, and if fortunate enough to be confirmed, something I would carry to the bench.
Thanks, Senator Butler. Senator Hawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations to the nominees. Thank you for being here. Congratulations to your families. Ms. Sugnanan, if I could start with you. I think we've established from the recent lines of questioning that you worked at Jones Day. You were a partner at Jones Day, is that right?
That's correct, Senator.
And you had, how long were you at Jones Day, out of curiosity?
I was at the firm for 6 years, Senator.
Okay. You had a series of clients in that time, I imagine. Is that fair to say?
That's correct.
That included a series of hedge funds, global hedge funds, is that right?
Yes, Senator.
Funds like Altair Global, Claren Road Asset Management, Glendon Capital Management, Nakota Capital, Oak Tree Capital Management, Ochre Rose, and Centerbridge Partners. Does that sound right?
That sounds right.
And you represented these hedge funds in particular during a debt crisis that Puerto Rico had in 2017. Do you remember that?
Yes, Senator.
So Puerto Rico had a debt crisis in 2017. Your clients had bought a series of bonds and held quite a lot of money in bonds, if I'm correct. And it's $1.4 billion. Does that sound right?
Yes, Senator.
Of course, other people had bought bonds too. Normal people, everyday people had bought bonds. And when the debt crisis kicked off, the courts froze all of the assets, all of Puerto Rico's assets, to make sure that everybody got their fair share and was paid out in accordance with the law, and that normal people who bought bonds would get their fair share, right? I mean, I've got it right so far?
Yes, Senator.
So you, however, on behalf of your clients, you invented a novel claim. You filed a lawsuit under the takings clause. Is that right?
That's correct, Senator.
So you argued that the government was stealing from the hedge funds by freezing all of the funds, and if they pursued that course of action and didn't give your clients all of their money first, then they would have violated the U.S. Constitution. Is that right?
That's not quite correct, Senator.
Why was it a good idea? why represent all of these hedge funds trying to get billions of dollars out of Puerto Rico when other everyday bondholders are left to pick up the slack? You dragged this thing out for years. I mean, you went back and forth to the circuit court. Other hedge funds then followed your lead. They thought that was terrific arguments, super inventive. So then they did the same thing. So then other hedge funds piled in. The bankruptcy went on and on. Puerto Rico was forced to institute serious austerity measures, much to the detriment of their citizens, average people who don't have money for hedge funds. Why is it a good idea to go to Puerto Rico and to try to get your rich clients prioritized over normal people in a way that seriously impoverished, if I might say, the citizens of the island?
Senator, the legal profession is bound by a code of ethics that I think is incredibly important and that I am proud to adhere to in every case. My clients in that case...
Take from the rich or take from the poor to give to the rich? Is that the code of ethics?
Senator, Jones Day was retained in that case to represent a group of clients. Along with my colleagues, I made the best possible arguments.
Well, wait. Are you saying it wasn't voluntary? You represented him, right? You were lead counsel, I thought. Were you lead counsel?
Senator, I was not lead counsel. I was one of many lawyers who handled that litigation.
And it was involuntary? You were assigned, or you chose to do it? You did it voluntarily, didn't you?
Senator, those hedge funds were a client of the firm. I was asked to join the team and work on that matter.
But you did. Okay. My question is why? Why is that? Why is it a good idea? I mean, you can say no.
Senator, my colleagues and I at Jones Day in that case made the best possible argument.
Well, I know, and I listen. I don't. I'm not questioning your talent. I understand why they wanted to hire you. Your talent's considerable. I'm just wondering why you thought it was important to deploy it on behalf of these hedge funds to the detriment of everyday citizens who were bearing the cost. And you invented it was very novel. Listen, I give you credit. And everybody else thought so too. That's why all the other rich players got in and said, we want to do that, and drug it out for years. I'm just wondering why you thought that was a good idea.
Senator, Jones Day was retained to represent
I heard that the first
clients.
time. I'm just wondering why you thought it was a good idea. You could use your considerable talents in any number of cases, ways, means, and methods. You could have said no to representing these clients. You didn't, obviously. In fact, you vigorously defended them to the point of inventing this novel theory, which was quite successful for your very lucrative clients. I'm just wondering why.
Senator, I have represented a number of clients over the course of my career. I have represented the government. I have represented clients.
So you don't have any problem with this? You think this is a good idea? You stand by it?
Senator, my job in that representation was to vigorously represent my clients, which I did.
Sure, but we'd established, I think, a second ago, I thought you told Senator Kennedy that you resigned from Jones Day over a client that the firm was representing who you didn't like.
Senator, that is not at all what I said.
You didn't resign from Jones Day?
Senator, I did not resign from Jones Day because of any particular representation.
So it wasn't a moral, you had no moral quandaries?
Absolutely not, Senator.
You had no moral quandaries with any of the cases at Jones Day? That's your testimony?
Senator, I left the firm in January of 2021 because I was offered an opportunity to return to public service. It's an opportunity the firm supported and that I took.
You had no quandaries with them representing in the Trump litigation? You had
Senator,
no problem with that? That's your testimony?
Senator, I did not leave my firm because of that representation.
I left my firm.
Senator, I left the firm months later because I received an opportunity to return to public service.
You had no problem with that, and you had no problem representing the bondholders. So your testimony is you're happy to represent anybody who comes your way. Donald Trump, you bet. The bondholders, you bet. Hedge funds, you bet. Whoever. That's your testimony? I just want to make sure I got it right.
Senator, throughout my career, I have adhered to the code of ethics that all lawyers are bound by.
Well, sure, but the code of ethics allow you to make money from anybody. Listen, you can choose your clients. I'm not accusing you of any ethical violations at all. I'm not. I'm just trying to figure out why you thought it was important to have these hedge funds as your clients, and if you had any moral quandaries. And your testimony is you didn't have any moral quandaries, which is fine, but I just wonder if that's the best judgment.
Senator, throughout my career, I have represented corporate clients. I have represented criminal defendants. I have represented the government. Throughout my career, I am proud that I have
Want to say anything to the people of Puerto Rico while we're here?
Please let her finish the answer. Your time has expired. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Durbin. Throughout my career, I have represented many different clients. I am proud that in every representation, I have made the best possible arguments for all of my clients.
Do you want to say anything to the people of Puerto Rico?
Senator Whitehouse.
Thank you very much. One of the things that I have noted appears to be a considerable drift in the Supreme Court away from the jury system, with rules changes that make it easier to get cases dismissed before they come to a potential jury, with jury damages awards knocked back, with entire issues, particularly in the corruption space, removed from a jury's determination to simple, bright line rules. And we've heard in this committee very often in various districts how rare it is for there still to be jury trials. Indeed, there are a few district judges that write about how you bring the jury back. In that context, I want to ask each of you where you fall on the spectrum or between the 2 points of seeing a jury as a mere fact-finding appendage to the court versus seeing it as a significant and important element in the American system of self-governance. And if you don't mind, I'll just go right across the table, starting with you, Ms. Alexakis.
Thank you, Senator. I certainly fall on the end of the spectrum that recognizes that a jury trial, the right to a jury trial, is a fundamental right. It's enshrined for criminal defendants in the Sixth Amendment. In civil cases, it's enshrined in the Seventh Amendment. In my nearly 20 years of practice, I have tried civil cases and criminal cases in front of a jury, and that experience has left me with a firm conviction about the importance of juries in the judicial process. It increases transparency, and it enhances a particularly important participatory element of our democracy.
Ms. Lanham?
Senator, I too fall on that same end of the spectrum and see juries as a bedrock of our system. I have had the honor of representing the United States in criminal jury trials and in defending civil jury verdicts on appeal. My experience in those cases has been that the juries are the voice of common sense and community standards in a process where sometimes there isn't a tremendous amount of common sense. And so if confirmed, I would be doing everything that I could when appropriate, to allow the parties to have jury trials.
Magistrate Martinez?
Thank you. I agree with the comments of my fellow nominees, and I'll share that I too have had the opportunity to try a number of criminal jury trials as well as a civil jury trial, and it is essential to the litigants' sense of being heard and of fairness to have a jury of their peers determine their case.
Ms. Suknanan?
Senator, I share my fellow nominees' views. It's the right to a civil jury trial is protected in the Constitution for a reason. I think it is incredibly important, and it brings the voices of the people to our judicial system. And I, too, if confirmed, would take all steps as appropriate to ensure that it is something that gets carried out.
I just close by offering an observation that you may wish to take away with you or not, but that is that, particularly from my perspective here in Congress, you see big powers and interests marching around the Capitol like they own the place, surrounded with phalanxes of lawyers, able to deliver false political spin as much as they please, and never held to account. Depending on the administration, they can walk into the offices of the executive branch and be treated with similar reverence, and again, not be held accountable for what they're saying and be surrounded in retinues of lobbyists and lawyers. And all of that changes when they get in front of a jury. The stuff that they do to try to influence the executive branch to get their way, the stuff that they do in the Capitol, try to influence Congress to get their way, would be illegal in front of a jury. It's the one place where power and influence matter less than anywhere else in government. And I would just commend that to you at a time when power and influence are at grotesque levels in the other two branches of government, particularly through the gouts of dark money that are spent through creatures like super PACs that didn't used to even exist. That there's something very precious about the hard square corners of the jury box. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Whitehouse. Senator Welch.
Thank you very much. Just two things. Number one, I do share some of Senator Hawley's concerns. There's always an issue for us as lawyers. We have to represent our client. That's the ethical standard. I guess my complaint is with the hedge funds. It's pretty astonishing to buy up distressed securities with a specific intention of trying to get an inflated value through litigation. But to some extent, that's on us as well. What the laws of bankruptcy are and what the laws that should apply to what I think is incredible profiteering that happened by those hedge funds at the expense of the impoverished people of Puerto Rico. It's just really, really appalling. But I don't know that we can hold any individual lawyer accountable for the reasons you mentioned. I do want to ask, we've got some distinguished prosecutors here, and I was a public defender. I have enormous respect for the work that you do in the judicial system, and I have enormous respect for the work public defenders do as well. As judges, you will play a major role in the culture in the courts about respecting the services of the folks who are in your job, but also the public defenders, the probation officers, the court officers. I'm very distressed about what happened to the public defender budget last year. They got stiffed, and it is going to result in cuts unless that is corrected in the current appropriation, which my hope is that it will be. But given the major role you play in respecting the elements of the judicial system, I want each of you, the prosecutors, to tell me how you see the role of public defender and how you will, as a judge, make certain that that continues to be a critical component. And I'll start with you, and we'll go to the right. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I do recognize the important role that public defenders play in the criminal justice system. Although I have spent the majority of my career working as a prosecutor, while in private practice, I did work as a criminal defense attorney as well. And from that perspective, I gained, a particular appreciation for the difficulty that criminal defense attorneys, the particular difficulties that criminal defense attorneys face in that work. I will also say that as a prosecutor, I've taken an oath as an AUSA to uphold the Constitution. Mm-hmm. And for me, that has meant safeguarding the constitutional rights of defendants. And I take that part of my role incredibly seriously. If I were so fortunate as to be confirmed, I would use both those experiences. My time, admittedly brief, but still significant in my mind as a criminal defense attorney, and my work as a prosecutor balancing the needs to advocate the United States while also safeguarding the rights of the defendants.
Thank you.
Senator, I share Ms. Alexakis' view on this also. I have always seen it as being within the interests of the United States to uphold every amendment to the Constitution, including the 6th Amendment to the Constitution. And so I have been privileged to count among my colleagues federal public defenders. And I have worked with federal public defenders on several large initiatives, including ensuring the right for defendants to have counsel, even in situations where perhaps under statutes or the law they would not be entitled to them. So for example, I collaborated with the Federal Public Defender's Office to draft a general order that allowed for representation for defendants bringing claims under the First Step Act for compassionate release, and most recently under the Sentencing Guidelines retroactive amendment.
Thank you very much. Judge?
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator. I share my fellow nominees' comments. I know we're short on time. I'll just add that as a former federal prosecutor, I represented the United States in almost 1,500 matters. And in every single one of those cases, I was thankful every single time when there was a defense attorney who appeared in the case, competent, ready to go. I always felt as a prosecutor that it was fundamental that a defendant's rights were well protected.
Okay. Thank you very much. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Welch, and thanks to the nominees. It's been, I'm sure, a memorable experience for each of you and your family and friends. It is our ordinary fare in this committee each week. We virtually know how every senator is going to ask and what they're going to do to either encourage or enrage us. And now you've had a personal experience on it. I appreciate your being here. Questions for the record will be due to the nominees by 5 o'clock on Wednesday, March 27th, and the record will remain open until that time to submit letters and similar materials. And with that, the hearing of the Senate Judiciary Committee stands adjourned.